We know it was you. We know you are the one. We know it. You stole Terry's scooter. We'll get into that, as well as the Hall of Fame, some prospect talk, and much more on today's Locked On Guardians.
You are Locked On Guardians, your daily podcast on the Cleveland Guardians, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Locked On Guardians. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/Locked On today to get started. I want to thank you for making Locked On Guardians your first listen today and every day, wherever it is you get podcasts. And I am one of your co-hosts, Jeff Ellis. I have never ridden a moped or a scooter of any kind.
I'm Justin. I never have as well. I have a friend named Scooter, but I'd never ridden a scooter, so that takes me out of the questioning here. Tito's gonna pick a scooter up tomorrow. Somebody found it. I don't know who would have taken it, but it's awful close to truck day, I think, to send the trucks to Arizona. That usually gets packed up in the truck, so maybe somebody went on a joyride, or maybe they were trying to get it clean for him. Maybe they took it out for like a service detail.
Yeah, was it an inside job? Was there someone in there who feels like they got slighted last year?
You know what it is. Somebody got changed the license plate to handsome manager, or they got custom painted detail on there for world's most handsome manager.
Yeah, it's probably gonna be something funny like that. This is going to be a silly story that, unfortunately, I think is here to stay. It's not one I got too into, but. It was one that the media reported on heavily, more so than I think the signing of Mike Zunino or of Josh Bell. Oh, that we were discussing before the show. Maybe we'll save it for tomorrow. I was going to mention the Fangraphs piece on exit velocity. Speaking of Mike Zunino.
Oh yes, I was going to mention the same thing. So we'll just might as well say it.
Well, why don't we save that? We'll tease it, and we'll get to that in segment 2 or 3 because we're kind of packed in segment 1 here. Let's lead off with kind of the next biggest information that could affect this team. After the loss of a scooter, could be potentially the loss of one of the, most respected individuals in the organization. Someone a year ago, if you listen to this podcast, I was more concerned about losing than I was about who they eventually, Carter Hawkins, right? That's who they eventually lost to the Cubs. I was more concerned about losing James Harris. James Harris is interviewed for the Rays position, we found out today. So, Astros. I said, yeah, the Rays don't have an opening. The Astros, one of the reasons I really like James Harris, on top of being like a sports science guy and someone who's worked a lot of positions, is he was an outside person. He brought in some new thoughts and ideas, and I think that's important for an organization like Cleveland. You do not want to become is it a wind tunnel, right, where it's just the same thing over and over again? Isn't that the expression? But
echo chamber.
I wish James Harris well in all of his pursuits. I just really hope those pursuits don't take him out of Cleveland anytime soon.
I would agree. I was lucky enough to have a couple conversations with him the last couple of years before he got promoted to assistant GM. Always very generous with his time and always gave very thoughtful answers. You could ask him a 1 or 2 word question, and he'd give you 5 or 6 long-winded sentences back on players, philosophies, concepts, training, all those sorts of things. But yeah, I agree that he brought a lot of outside thinking and new ways to look at things. I was super excited when they hired him. I remember I wrote about this back on Indians Baseball Insider back when it was on 24/7 Sports. It was one of my first couple pieces I wrote, and I think I did 5,000 words on them hiring him as their player development director, because I was like, this is a totally new concept to me. He was like a coach or some sort of nutritionist role at not nutritionist. He has a background in nutrition, but he was doing something with the University of Oregon and the football team, and it had to do with, like you said, sports science and all these different
body
concepts,
mechanics and things like what we've seen them kind of run to the forefront of in their development.
Yeah, it wasn't like before him. They had like Ross Atkins and some other guys that were in that role, and he was just a totally new kind of outside the box hire from his background. And I thought that was really interesting at the time. And I think it's done great things for them because I think it's helped him look at development in a different way. And they've always had to be out of the box thinkers. And I definitely applaud the Astros for interviewing him. He interviewed for the Cubs job last year before Derek Falvey got it. Not Derek Falvey, Carter Hawkins. Carter Hawkins got it. Derek Falvey's in Minnesota. Yeah, before Carter Hawkins got it. James Harris also interviewed that position. So he hasn't gotten the Astros position yet. He's one of the 3 finalists I saw. I don't know who else is on the list, but wouldn't be surprised if he got it. And
Brad Osmus
from the Astros.
Brad Osmus is one.
Boy, well, I'm sorry, James. They're going to hire Brad Osmus. I bet that seems like a Jim Crane thing to do, right? Yeah. It just seems like the way he'd go in that direction. But I hope he gets it because he deserves it. And honestly, it would be a great hire. I think that a team like the Astros that have really been, I want to say cutting edge. I don't know how to work trash cans and cutting edge into the same joke. So I'm just going to throw that out there. But they have been cutting edge outside of their use of trash cans in a lot of ways. And I think he'd be a unique fit for them in that player development group. So, and anywhere he gets hired, they'll be lucky to have him. I think you're right. That would be a significant loss for Cleveland, but it's one they can't avoid. I mean, Chris Anthony is not going anywhere anytime soon. I have no idea about unless Mike Chernoff wants to get promoted to president of baseball ops, like, Derek Falvey did, or Antonetti's role somewhere else. He's not going anywhere. So they have no room to continue to promote these guys. So at some point, if it's not the Astros job, it'll be somebody for James Harris. But, I do wish him well.
I just want to, for those who aren't familiar, I'm going to quickly read the resume. So he graduated from college the year I graduated from high school. It looks like he was an athletic department student worker at Nebraska, a football strength coach at Arizona State, a performance specialist, and he was a coordinator of sports nutrition for 5 years at Nebraska. 4 years as a consultant with the 49ers. He left that to become the assistant athletic and then the associate athletic director at University of Oregon, where he was for 5 years. Left that to become chief of staff for the Philadelphia Eagles for 3 years.
That's right.
Then he went to the Pirates for 1 year, almost exactly, special assistant to baseball operations. And then he's been with Cleveland for the last 6. He came over in December of 2016. And listen, I know we're not supposed to focus on, we're supposed to, he's a great candidate. And you can see it's a diverse background of really good things. But I think it's also a slam dunk because hiring a person of color is a great thing to do. And it's something that also makes an organization look better than constantly hiring white dudes. And you can get mad at me. I know there's going to be, there's going to be people in the comments who get mad at me, but if you were looking full picture, it doesn't matter color of skin, is a great candidate, but it's also going to win you headlines. It's true. It's one of those things. If you're looking at everything he brings, that's should be viewed as another positive. Maybe I'm not supposed to state it that bluntly, but sports is a matter of winning headlines. It's, again, he could be purple. He's a fantastic candidate. But I think being a person of color should be something that we don't have a lot of those in the GM ranks.
I think the really thing you look at that for me is you look at the percentage of who's playing baseball and what the diversity of baseball is these days. It's very underrepresented by that community, and it's a little more diverse in the Latin background now, but you have way less Latin and Black representatives in those positions across baseball. I mean, I think Dusty Baker is the only Black manager right now in baseball. Is that right?
Dave Roberts.
Okay, Dave Roberts is there, and I know there's various sprinkled out the front office. That the Latin community is very underrepresented, and I would say probably front offices as well, maybe more so in coaching staffs. But I think you want to find candidates that can relate to your players, and I think James Harris is going to do that. But it's also, I mean, with baseball, really, they've tried to put an emphasis on reaching out to the Black community and younger generations too, to get them interested in baseball and try to make baseball more accessible, which is really a really hard job because let's be honest, baseball is the cost to play baseball as a youth is a big barrier to it right now, and it's just not in a lot of areas where it's accessible. Unfortunately, you could do worse than James Harris as somebody you could point to as an example to look at. And I'm sorry, representation matters. You want to get kids to look at something they could be and be and aspire to. James Harris would be a great candidate. Not only because he is has been successful in his baseball roles, but also because he seems to be a good person as well. I mean, Cleveland has been pretty good about who they bring in. I know they've had some hiccups here and there with personalities, which we'll get into, but James Harris seems like a good representative of all that. So, and representation matters. That's all I'll say.
Yeah. No, and like I said, at the end of the day, it's just there's a reason there's no Rooney rule in baseball. Okay, so you can't sit there and say it's because of that. Like he's getting these shots because he's a really good candidate. So I'm just saying, like, no matter how you view it, I wish him well if he leaves. I don't want him to leave because he's fantastic, but there's a reason he keeps getting looked at, and eventually, if not this year, probably at some point next year, we'll see James Harris leaving Cleveland. He's everything, and you can, like I said, reading that resume, you can see the path that got him here in terms of just being a well-rounded individual, football, baseball, everything. He found ways to help athletes get better. We're going to come back. We still haven't even talked about the shortstop rankings over on MLB. We do have to discuss Clevenger. We have a trade, not involving the Guardians, but involving a shortstop to Boston. And we got that FanGraphs piece we already teased. So make sure you tune in for that. But today we have to talk about our new friends over at FanDuel. The NFL playoffs are here, and we're really excited about our new sports betting partner for Locked On because they're the number one sports book in America, FanDuel. And if you're new to FanDuel, that's even better. They have so many great features that make sports betting fun and easy. New customers just join today and get started with $150 in free bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. Just sign up at FanDuel.com/locked-on. FanDuel has your favorite bets, from the money line to the point spread to player props. Plus, you can even combine your bets for a chance at a bigger payout with a same game parlay. I talked about on yesterday's show. I like the Bengals, even though they're giving 1.5 this weekend. That's my standout. You have any standouts, or are you just sticking with that one?
I'm just going to ride with Joe Burrow. Whatever's out there on prop bets for Joe Burrow, I'm going to take a look into, because I think Joe Burrow is undefeated against Patrick Mahomes right now, and Patrick Mahomes is got a little hollowed by his ankle. So I'm sticking with Joe Burrow. I should have learned long ago not to bet against him. He's a Buckeye. Okay, I know everyone's going to say he went to LSU, but he's a Buckeye. I'm sticking with him.
3-0, I believe, in that one. FanDuel has your favorite bets from the money line to point spreads and player props. Plus, you can even combine your bets for a chance at a bigger payout with the same game parlay. I think I read that again. So football fans, don't miss out. Place your first $5 bet on any and get $150 in free bets. Win or lose at FanDuel.com/locked-on. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NFL. So let's talk shortstops, mostly because we had that lined up as something we were going to do in the first one. If we've been going through this MLB list, and the thing you have to say about this MLB list is there is certainly recency bias popping up. It's weird. I will say this. Every single one of their top 10 shortstops are going to be among the top 40 prospects in baseball. They mentioned that at the start of this. And, they talk about Cincinnati had a third guy who didn't miss by much. Colson Montgomery, who, again, he's going to get too thick to stick at shortstop with the White Sox. Royce Lewis, Mason Wynn aren't fall behind. Nowhere does Rocchio get any mention. Again, it's a little bit weird. I feel like Rocchio's problem is he has no sizzle. He's just solid, no sizzle. And this list is a lot of sizzle. It also has, people love Marco Luciano. The guy's been unable to stay healthy for 2 straight years. He's 21 already, which, we see a lot of Cleveland's 21-year-olds getting significant time in Double-A. He's only been in High A. Brooks Lee isn't going to play shortstop. So it's I don't understand why they're having guys listed at positions that they themselves have said these players are not going to play. They're keeping them listed at like college positions. Ezekiel Tovar was great last year, and he is a fantastic defender, but he's had one really good year, and that was in kind of limited games in a very hitter-friendly environment. I don't know. It's a weird list.
Are we sure that Ellie De La Cruz is going to stay at short? Like, he's also pretty big, too. Like, he's not thick, but he's tall, right? Ellie De La Cruz is not a small dude.
No.
Are we sure he's necessarily... I know he's
5.
Yeah, I know he's a good defender from what I've seen. I haven't seen him in person because I missed him by a day because he got sent to the Futures game when Dayton was coming into town for a matchup with Lake County. But I mean, he's 6'5", 200. There's not a lot of 6'5" shortstops. Like Corey Seager at 6'4", people thought was going to be crazy, and he has stuck. But so maybe he can. But like you said, Jackson Merrill's on there. He had a great year last year. Ezekiel Tovar is young, and he was in Double-A last year. A lot of people think he's going to start in the majors this year, only because the Rockies don't.
He got to the majors
anybody
last
good.
Year.
Oh, he did. Okay, so they're terrible. So he needs to be there. I'm not going to pass judgment on Brooks Lee yet. I saw him for one game last season with Cedar Rapids, and I came away unimpressed in that one game. But it was one game, so I'm not going to go off of that much. But yeah, if you look at this list, like go back to the left-handed pitching starters on the list. Logan Allen was left off, right?
Mm-hmm.
The year prior, Logan Allen was on that list. He had, like 4 or 5 bumpy starts in AAA, and they were like, all right, we're done with him. Second base, no Angel Martinez, like we said. Obviously, they had 2. They could have had 3 on the right-handed pitching list. Third base, there was really no argument for anybody. First base, you could have argued for Noel, but they are counting him as first baseman, which is hilarious because I really have a hard time seeing him as a future outfielder, but I don't know. Like I said, Brooks Lee, I'm not so sure about. Jackson Holliday, obviously, big name, big draft pick. Played like a handful of games last season. I understand ranking him. It's just, Jordan Lawler's good. I understand Volpe. I don't know.
And Lawler's had injury as well. Like, we haven't gotten to see him.
The shoulder part. Yeah, I forgot. Yeah, you're right. I think there's really no flash to Rocchio's game. I mean, he's called Professor. That's his nickname, the Professor. He's not called Mr. Electric or whatever you want to call him. He is not electric. He is a smooth criminal. I don't know what that. Maybe that's his nickname. He's Mr. Smooth instead of Dr. Smooth like Michael Brantley. He's Mr. Smooth or Mr. Professor. Something that sounds incredibly boring, but he's incredibly solid. I mean, he'll probably hit for a decent average. He'll have decent teen home run pop. He'll maybe steal teen to 20 or bags. He'll play good defense. Like, yeah, it's not an all-star profile. Like I said, I have concerns about Rocchio being close to Ahmed Rosario, where early on in his life as a prospect, he was really hyped high and then didn't quite deliver. And I think that might be the case for Rocchio, but he also had a down year. If you tell me if Rocchio had put up better stats, he wouldn't be on here. I guess that's probably obvious. I don't know if that's the right word. I mean, is it obvious? Yeah, I guess you play well, you get ranked high, but there's just so much recency bias on here. I feel like I don't know. Are we already getting prospect burnout on guys like Valera and Rocchio and some other guys like Nolan Jones? I feel like that happened too as well. These guys have been mentioned on prospect lists for 3 or 4 years because they've been in the Cleveland system for a while because because of the pandemic year, we didn't get to see a lot of them play because they all came in through, they were highly thought of. Nolan Jones was a high draft pick. George Valera got a lot of money. Brayan Rocchio was a highly touted international signing. Like, I feel like these guys have been mentioned across prospect lists and people who like to talk about prospects for, the last, half decade now. It's already unbelievable to say that, but it's kind of true. So, like, are we getting to the point where it's fatigue on them? Because I look at this list and I'm like, okay, well, Volpe's been around for a few years. Meyer is relatively new. De La Cruz is new. Lawler's new. Holliday's new. Merrill was a pop-up guy last year. Luciano, I feel like, has had a couple of years. We've been talking about him. Lee is new. Marte is a pop-up guy. Tovar is a pop-up guy. Like, it's all newbies. There's no, I guess if they, I don't know, the good ones graduated already. Has he been in the minors too long? Is that a knock against him?
I mean, I think it's just, like I said, I think it's lack of sizzle. You look at this entire list, there's some degree of sizzle. Rocchio might be like 50s or 55s across the board. And I think that's what we're kind of looking at with this, is just that he is kind of, you know, there's no sizzle to him. There's no like recency reason. He's kind of a little bit, I don't want to say a forgotten man, but I think also just with Cleveland's never ending shortstop. So maybe there's a feeling like he's not going to get an opportunity anytime soon.
It's fatigue.
Yeah.
It's fatigue.
And I also think like sometimes they want to make these lists so they look smarter down the road. And I think there's always concern like, will Rocchio get an opportunity? Is he buried? Just for fun, something we didn't talk about beforehand, but to throw in here before we go to our break. You know, it's fun to talk prospects. You and I, it's our background. I just want to throw out, before we get too much, the top 10 prospect list in 2018. So 5 years ago, MLB reposted this. It shows you how much you can get right and wrong. So Ohtani, Aquino, Guerrero, Eloy, Gleyber Torres. Now here's where it starts to get Victor Robles, Nick Senzel, Fernando Tatis, Forrest Whitley, Michael Kopech. So for as much as we get into all of these, those are the best of the best. And 5 years later, yeah. So just always kind of, I guess, the caution with all of it. And then, you know, again, the Guardians' best players were never top 100 prospects. Ramirez, Bieber, Clase, Kwan. None of them were top. Your highest rated prospects on this team are Med Rosario and Andres Jimenez.
Then they weren't even in their own system. That's wild. Yeah.
So I think we'll take a break here, and then we will come back. We'll get into some old friends alerts, the Mike Clevenger situation, the trade with Boston, and the promised Zunino piece from today on today's episode of Locked On Guardians. And we are going to talk. Let's start quick old friend alerts. Sorry, I'm just making some notes there. Jesus Aguilar going to Oakland. To me, this is a terrible deal because I don't understand how he got $3 million. He was really bad last year. Felt like a classic in his 30s non-roster invitee. This feels like a way for Oakland to bump their payroll to me. I'm being completely like a way to be like, hey, our payroll is not that low. So it's an old friend alert. Had to mention it. Mike Clevenger. What I tweeted out earlier was, I'm gonna go with this. That there have been varying things out there about Clev over the years. I even alluded to some when he signed, saying that there's nothing close to what was reported today, and if a fraction of it's true, he should be done with baseball forever. That is my stance. That's what I tweeted. Listen, there's been a lot of things that are really easy to find over the years where he has been a jerk. And they're not hard to track down, not hard to find. The one concerning thing in all of them has been treatment of children. And to me, that's the thing that makes me get my dander up. So we'll see what happens. Apparently, this was reported over the summer. Major League Baseball kind of dragged their feet on it. And this is, I believe, a girlfriend. This is not the former wife who he had his first kids with. So this is outside of the previous situations that have been reported in the past. This is a brand new one. I don't know what the White Sox are going to do. I don't know what Major League Baseball is going to do, but he's going to get suspended very soon while this gets investigated. After everything else that has occurred with people, I would be surprised if Mike Clevenger takes the mound for the White Sox this year. The White Sox, the woman said that she thought there's a chance the White Sox didn't know, but it seems very hard with everything teams and organizations know that they wouldn't have had some idea. So I'll bite the bullet on that. I'll take the stance and say he shouldn't play based on what's out there until this gets fully investigated. And I know there'll again be people, because there are people who are mad at me for my Bauer takes. But if that is how these things are handled, then this is, that it's again, it involves some of her comments involve children. So I think this might be even worse.
Yeah, the Bauer thing didn't include children, so this does make it ostensibly worse. This is not anything you want to see anybody accused of, because you would hope nobody would do this, but I don't think any legal action, I shouldn't say any legal action wasn't taken against him with his previous commitment with his, I don't know if it was was it a wife? Was it a
Might have just been a
Not sure
girlfriend. Might have spoken.
Yeah. And either way, his previous partner, who he had kids with, I don't know if any legal action was taken. This looks like it's going to have legal action. I mean, he's being investigated by Major League Baseball. I don't know what's going on outside of that, but yeah, the Bauer precedent set would say that at least while it's being investigated, he probably will not be playing. We'll see how long that investigation takes, but the allegations are pretty awful, and you would hope they're not true. Like, that's the hope. You'd hope that nobody would do this kind of stuff in general to be accused of it, but he is accused of it. He's being investigated, and it's awful. And unfortunately, it looks like a pattern of behavior if you base it off of previous information that has been out there. And it's just really unfortunate. I feel for everybody involved if any of this is true.
Yeah, you shouldn't spit chewing tobacco at infants. I'll just put that out there if you want to read to just give you an idea of what's in some of it.
Yeah, it's on The Athletic. You can find it on The Athletic, and I think ESPN picked up on it as well. So it's out there. You can. Yeah, the ugly details are out there.
It's not it. Yeah, well, we're moving on. As hopefully baseball is with Clevenger, if any of this proves true. So let's talk about something fun now. So today, Ben Clemens, who's a good writer over at Fangraphs, had some breakout candidates courtesy of exit velocity percentiles, and the 95th percentile, so the highest end percentile exit velocity leaders. There is one Cleveland Guardian listed, and I guess
this is a good list, by the way.
Yeah,
this is a good list.
So it's like Giancarlo Stanton, O'Neal Cruz, Aaron Judge, Vladdy Guerrero, Jorge Soler. Okay, but Kyle Schwarber, Yordan Alvarez, Pete Alonso, Gary Sanchez. Okay, Mike Trout, Julio Rodriguez.
They're all winners. Okay,
Austin Riley, Jock Peterson, and then Mike Zunino. Like that's good company to be amongst.
Yeah, he prefaced those leaders too by saying he wasn't. Mike Zunino only had 70 batted balls last year because of his injury, so he wasn't going to include him, but he really wanted to. And so basically what that is, he's going off of raw power. These are guys who hit the ball hard. They don't necessarily do a lot with hard hit balls because, some of them do. Obviously, Stanton and Cruz and Judge and Vlad are on this list, and Schwarber and Yordan. Not all of these guys are, we talk about Sanchez and Jorge Soler had issues. There were other guys that lower on the list. Because did you see if you scroll down? Did you see who was on the next list?
Yeah, the breakout candidates list. That's the other. I'm more intrigued by this. So on his breakout candidates, it's their 95th percentile exit velocity. So what they're close to their high end versus their averages. Like the biggest differences. And he put together here are a list of guys who have a potential to break out. Like Michael Harris, after the great year he had, is on there. Jose Siri, that's one of the reasons Tampa went out to get him. If you want to buy low on Joey Bartz, if you're a believer in Shane Langoliers, if you want to buy low on Joe Adell, Jorge Alfaro, or if you think Nolan Jones is going to have a huge year for the Rockies, especially when you consider the shift in environments.
Mm-hmm.
Listen, I'm a Nolan Jones bandwagoner till he proves me wrong, but I've said I see a lot of Russell Branyan with him, and we'll see what happens. Colorado's the perfect place for him to fulfill that destiny on the field. On the field, not what happened afterwards.
Yeah, I still have questions for Nolan Jones about the passivity in his approach. That's the problem, and he does have a pretty big gap between average exit velocity and 95th percentile. But obviously that proves the raw power is there. And this is a list that's filled with guys who haven't made it yet. O'Neal Cruz obviously is a freak of nature. Jorge Alfaro has been given chances and never done anything with them. Shea Langoliers is getting a chance finally now that Sean Murphy's gone. Joey Bart has been unimpressive, and Joe Adell has never done anything with his chances. Jose Siri's been around for a minute. He's really glove first. I don't even know. Not even sure if I know who Dermis Garcia is. I think I should admit that, but I'm not really 100% sure.
Yeah, I don't know
who he is. He's on the Oakland Athletics, in case you're curious.
But a lot of those guys,
not really highly thought of.
A lot of those were the breakout candidates, in that one. Zanino's in there with the proven guys,
right? Because he gets to his raw power. When he hits the ball, he hits it hard.
like his 95th percentile exit velocity is higher than all of the breakout guys outside of O'Neal Cruz. Like it is higher than Alfaro, it is higher than Harris. So it is a, it's a nice thing to see. It's just another thing that points to like, this is a guy who just destroyed left-handed pitching when healthy. Which, what does this team need? Someone who can destroy left-handed pitching. Because the problem was Austin Hedges got destroyed by all pitching. And even if Zunino struggles against righties, he's buoyed by what he does against lefties. And
he'll
he's a placeholder.
Splitting with them. Yeah.
He's a placeholder. And then you might have a great platoon potential there. Before we go to the after show, we have to talk. Listen, we've done so many talks about the Red Sox needing a shortstop. This is an interesting trade because it's the Kansas City Royals are giving up Alberto Mondesi and a player to be named later for Josh Taylor, and B, neither of these guys can stay healthy. Josh Taylor didn't play at all last year because of a back injury. He misses a lot of bats, and he's been a really good reliever in the seasons he's been healthy, but he didn't play in 2020 because of health. He didn't play in 2022 because of health. But the other years, I mean, he has been Baseball Reference is not a place known for good WAR value for relievers, but he's been over 1 win in 2019 and 2021 when healthy. You have him through 2025, so it's a good lefty, big. I mean, you could. I don't know his pitch mix. I don't know if you could try him as a starter. 6'5", 245, left-handed reliever. Again, with health issues, you probably don't want to, but he's a good reliever. And we talked about Boston would probably have to trade from their pen to go out and get someone. Like, would they trade Tanner Houck? Would they trade? I really wasn't looking at Josh Taylor because he hadn't pitched last year. But it's an interesting arm. I like it for Kansas City, who didn't really have a spot for Mondesi. I'm curious what the player to be named later will be. I'm curious if that player to be named later is based on health by either or both players. But it's I think it's a good move by both teams. Boston traded an interesting volatile asset for an interesting volatile asset, but went from a position of need, traded from a position of depth to a position of need.
Well, they already said that they're not even sure if Mondesi will be ready to start the season on time. Yeah. So it's already off to a good start. Well, Mondesi is obviously a really good talent if he can stay healthy. He's a nightmare on the bases. He's been an interesting defender. He has grown into a good bat a little bit, but it's a swap of we need a shortstop. The Royals didn't need him, and they were probably tired of waiting for his health, although Josh Taylor wasn't healthy either, but they're more willing to figure out if he can help them in the bullpen versus even if Mondesi got healthy, they were ready to move on. So I guess it works, but I don't know. The Red Sox, if they still would be interested in still adding the shortstop, because obviously now they have 2 shortstops that aren't healthy right now between, I don't know if we're considering Trevor Story shortstop anymore, but they now have 2 shortstops that aren't healthy.
It also saves the Royals $2 million, and Mondesi was going to be a free agent at the end of the year. So there is that as well with this, that it's money savings, and it's a guy who's near the end. And what I like with what the Royals are doing is between Taylor and Mondesi, it's like those guys were going to be free agents at the end of the year. They're getting some assets now that can help them down the road. They're trading guys who, they know they're not going to be good. So let's flip guys. Let's get players and let's see, can Taylor and Evan Cizik be the lefty relievers for them for the next, 5 years? Then this is net wins. There's a report today that they've talked with the White Sox for Nicky Lopez. Again, I love this. This is what credit to JJ Piccolo, who has not turned this job, but this is what Dayton Moore was never willing to do. He was never going out there and making these fringe trades, and this is what you have to do. So a lot of credit to the management team there. Before we go after show, I know we're running along. Let's talk about the AA coaching staff for the Seattle Mariners.
The AA, the Arkansas Travelers. The fans remember Mike Freeman, the famous utility man from, was that 2019 and 2020? I think he was, I don't know if he was back in 2021, but he is now the manager for the Northwest, or is it just Arkansas? Is it Northwest Arkansas? I think it's just Arkansas Travelers, and their pitching coach, this is going to be extremely obscure for most people, but their pitching coach is Michael Peoples, who was a one-time Cleveland Indians draft pick. I forgot how high he might. He
got the AAA. Not he was a Danny Peoples. I really liked Michael Peoples in. He's in Oklahoma State, or no, Western Oklahoma State. I really liked him. I saw him in AA. I thought he had a chance. I legitimately thought he had a chance to get to the big leagues. because he didn't walk anyone. He was starting to miss some bats. I mean, he was an older guy. I was trying to think when I first saw him was probably about 2016. And I mean, I guess he wasn't missing enough bats. That was always the thing, but he was a really solid pitcher. It was just, he couldn't strike guys out, but he was an interesting pitch in Japan for a long time, left and went to Yokohama for 2-3 years. But I really liked him down there. He was a really smart guy, really intelligent, and makes sense that now he's a coach.
Yeah,
he probably played with Justin when they were in Double A together. So
yeah, so Justin Tooley, the president of player development for the Mariners, has started the Cleveland to Seattle pipeline. So you never know; it might not be the last one.
We got a few more things to get into here that we'll do in the after show. We kind of did some rapid fire stuff. We're going to probably discuss a little bit more about the trade, maybe a little bit more prospect stuff. And I know someone, I appreciate everyone who listens and watches. Sir Gray has talked about, we're not talking about the team right now. The reason we are focused on the prospects is we've covered like every aspect of this team so in depth. There's not much to talk about until we get a little bit closer, until we get some more camp invites. When more players we're seeing more teams do non-roster invitees. When that pops up, we will go deep. When we're getting a little bit closer, we'll start thinking about things like lineups. But we're going to do a few more things. We still have our top prospects list to reveal. We still have going to do our minor league draft where we talk about and compare teams, do a head-to-head draft. We might even do some MLB draft stuff at some time. Maybe I'll give Justin a night off and just sit here and talk to myself because everyone loves that so much. But we'll have that. But as we get closer to February is definitely going to be a switching back to Major League Baseball. And on that note, go Guardians, go.
All right. So real quick, before we get into the other stuff,
yes,
I want to ask you. The NBA, the last couple of years, has done away with Eastern Conference versus Western Conference in the All-Star game. They've done the player draft. This year, they're taking it a step further, and the teams are not being drafted until the day or like a half hour before the game starts. So the All-Stars are obviously voted on by players. It's 1/3, which I really love, by the way, for All-Star voting. The players have 1/3 of the vote, media has 1/3 of the vote, and fans have 1/3 of the vote. Excuse me. But now they're picking teams an hour before the game starts. I don't. That's fine. I don't really have a.
I feel like did that start with the NHL? I think the NHL started that.
They might have. You're right, but I either way, I like the idea. What do you think about Major League Baseball picking that up?
I think they should. I mean, anything to add a little more juice, a little more fun. There's so many different ways you can handle it, but yeah, I would be all for that personally. I think it's a fun idea. I think it's a good idea. Getting to see some of those guys play together, getting to see some of the friendships, getting behind the curtain. I think all that helps. Maybe give Mike Trout a chance to show personality, make him a captain, see what happens. Like,
right.
Give some of these guys, give some of these stars of the game a real opportunity to shine. And I love the idea of doing it right before the game.
Ohtani? How about, that one, it's not not a big deal, but how about like Shohei Ohtani has to pitch to Mike Trout? Like, that'd be cool, right?
He gets ready for next
Bieber. Yeah, Shane Bieber is pitching to Jose Ramirez. I would love to watch that. I would love to watch
for next season as well.
Oh, yeah.
Or in 2 years for both of those.
Yeah, well, not for, yeah. Julio Rodriguez. I mean, I'll watch, Logan Gilbert or George Kirby try to strike him out. You can't say next year for one of those two.
No.
Or Luis Castillo. But like Harper and Trout on the same team. We've never had that. Those two have been tied together since they got drafted and came up. Like those two on the same team. Harper's been in the National League his whole career, and Trout's going to spend his whole career as an Angel probably. So those two on the same team, how fun would that be? I mean, I would have loved to have seen, I know it was probably more fitting that Yadier Molina caught Adam Wainwright, but how about Adam Wainwright versus Yadier Molina in the batter's box? Like, you can't tell me those guys wouldn't have loved those bragging rights. I think it'd be fun for everybody.
It'd be a fun change. It was always like, I don't know, like I'm going to sound like the old man right now. I'm going to tell people to get off, my lawn, but there was always like a mystique about the National League because I never got to see it. Right. Like,
right.
I didn't have cable growing up. I watched, it was like Saturday afternoon baseball on Fox was huge for me. Like that's where I got to watch National League players, but it's like a rare occurrence to see Tony Gwynn in general for me. So getting to watch him in the All-Star game, like I've been that person, like during the season, people are like, how can you not like the All-Star game? I'm like, I don't care anymore. Like as an adult, it has no value. I haven't watched an All-Star game.
Really? Man,
yeah, I haven't watched an All-Star game in forever.
I nerd out so hard during the All-Star break. I love the celebrity softball game. I went when it was in Cleveland. That was fun. The prospect, the futures game.
Yeah,
I was so pissed off last year. Yeah, I was so ticked when they shortened it to 7 innings. That was terrible. I wanted to see more. All-Star game, Home Run Derby. I nerd out on all that. I love seeing
none of it
the best talent assembled in one place.
As a kid, it mattered so much more because it was like I didn't get to see these guys. So it was like this was the one opportunity to sometimes see some of those guys all year. So like it mattered so much more. And now as an adult, I'm like, I mean, it always happens around my birthday. So like now as an adult, I'm just like, I got other things to do.
If you love baseball though, like you've got the best talent in the sport all in one place, playing against each other, having fun.
An exhibition game. I don't know. It just feels like it's not like it's competition. It's an exhibition game.
This is okay. The NBA All-Star game is an exhibition game. They don't try. The NFL Pro Bowl has been a sham since it was started. Yeah, the NHL All-Star game is fun, I will admit, but baseball, the MLB All-Star game is the closest you get to a real, actual game, and you have the best players in the world on one field. It's the best you can do, and I will not hear any other arguments. Yes, I will never let you hear the end.
I think it's a boring exhibition game, and you'd have to pay me to watch it.
All right, you know what? All-Star break. You are on vacation during All-Star break week. I will take the nerd shows, and I'm going
to be doing draft content. It's the All-Star week. So it's like and that's the other thing. Now that they moved that, it's like I can't even if I loved it, I wouldn't have time for it. Now that it's like literally All-Star game draft. So it's
we're gonna have to do 2 individual shows. I think we're gonna have to do 2 shows where you do the draft. Yes, you do the shows with the draft. And I'll do the shows with the All-Star.
We're gonna have like you'll do because sometimes during the summer I would do like a late show because it's like I could sleep in a bit. So it's like that 1 a.m. draft show after the the All-Star game show at 9:30. We'll just have double shows, double your watching opportunities over here in Locked On Guardians.
Yes, why not? Yeah. Why not? I'm down for it. We'll meet our quota. But let us know if you guys
meet our quota in the first week.
It's fine. It's a slow week. We'll have a lot of ground to cover because
we'll just take the second half of July off.
Games. No, we can't do that because we got to talk about all the prospects. The Guardians will not trade the trade deadline. But let us know in the comments if you would like to see the.
I know I'm in the
MLB.
I know I'm in the.
Yeah, well, not the game itself, but let us know if you think Major League Baseball needs to try out the All-Star player draft. I know baseball is always the last to change tradition.
What about this would never happen. What about like if the winner of the All-Star game had to face the winner of the Futures game?
Ooh, I like that. I don't know how the logistics would work on that.
Yeah, I don't know how the logistics would either, but I'd love to see that. Like, I would be okay if all the games are 7 innings then, so you got a third game.
That's true.
But yeah,
they do have that extra day in between. But most guys
and then that gives you that chance to like showcase the young. Actually, show because I feel like half the time I can't even find the Futures game when it's on. They bury it so deep.
Oh yeah, that's another pet peeve. I love that game, and it's so hidden.
It's like you have to you got to do like 3 knocks on your controller, and like I remember this again. At one point in time back in the day when there were cable boxes, my dad knew someone who worked at Time Warner, and there was like a code you entered on your remote, and then you got free access to things. So we used to maybe I shouldn't be sharing this, but we used to get like free movies in the 90s. Like he knew the code you entered.
Like pay-per-view,
so all the pay-per-view would then be free. But
okay, we spent a lot of time on that.
You essentially have to do that code now to get the Futures game.
Yeah,
that's what it feels like. I can't, like I said, I can't locate it half the time, and I'm looking for it. I know we promised on yesterday's show that we talk about the Ohio baseball players. So it's the after show. I apologize to people who listen to the podcast who missed it. But if you want to know the 5 players who were born in Cleveland and played their high school ball in Northeastern Ohio, who were born in Northeastern Ohio and played in Northeastern Ohio, they are as followed. Tanner Scott, who was, I'm blanking on his high school. Sorry, Tanner Scott. Zach Lothar, who went to Cleveland Heights. I believe his dad was the coach. Did I say it wrong? Cuyahoga Heights. Cuyahoga Heights. Yes.
Yes.
Wrong. Sorry. Eric Lauer. This is bad. I'm having a hard time top of my head with everyone.
Howerton? Is that what you said? Howerton?
Howland?
Howard?
Was that
Howland.
Howland. But was that him or was that Scott? That might have been Tanner Scott.
I can't remember. All I know is Eric Lauer went to Kent State, and he is probably the best guy in this list you're going to name.
Brooks Raley went to Highland. I know that because my mom was a home ec teacher at Highland for 30 years. So
Lake Erie College too.
Yeah, Lake Erie College. If you went to Highland, there's a decent chance you had my mom as a home ec teacher. If you're my age or younger. And Scott Efros, who kind of a bit of a forgotten guy. I'm trying to remember. He went to Twinsburg. That's what it is. I was getting ready to pull his up, because I'm I know his. Let's see. Those are if you're I know everyone's Andrew Chafin. Andrew Chafin was from, he was born in Dayton. I think he came up here because he went to Western Reserve. Eric Lauer
Brubaker was in Springfield. Okay.
Yeah, most baseball players from the state of Ohio,
South,
are from the Dayton area, more Midview.
Schwarber, Benintendi, yeah.
Lauer went to Midview.
Nick Swisher,
Columbus, all the way with him, right? Wasn't he in Columbus?
Yeah, he went to Ohio State. Yeah,
he went to Ohio State when I was at Ohio State, so I remember that. If Dylan, not Dillinger.
Dylan. Oh, I don't know who Dylan is.
No, Dillinger. Why am I blanking on the catcher?
Oh, Dylan Dingler. Okay.
Dingler, not Dillinger. Dylan Dingler. Not Dylan Dillinger. Dylan Dingler, Jackson High School, I want to say, where he's a multi-sport guy. So he could.
Oh, in Canton? Okay.
Yeah. So that's still Northeast Ohio, right?
Yeah, that's
Canton
there.
still counts.
Yeah.
So he's someone who could be in there. But yeah, not exactly, a list of world beaters. I did have to comment when I was looking at the 33 players born in Ohio. I was telling Justin after the show, it's kind of crazy. TJ Zoich, Eric Lauer, Andrew Benintendi. They were all part of the same high school class, and none of them got drafted out of high school. They all went to college. Zach Farmer was a really good pitcher who unfortunately passed away of I want to say leukemia at Ohio State, who was kind of up there with Lauer and them in terms of pitching ranks. So it was a mind blowing class that.
And how about
those guys played last year?
How about all the players that made it out of Defiance? I can't remember all their names. There's so many. There was Chad Billingsley, and then who was the one that was the reliever for Tampa Bay last year that we talked about? Dace Kime. Yeah, Dace Kime is a Defiance guy. For a while, Defiance had this weird pipeline of players that were making it to the majors. You mentioned Andy Sonestein a while yesterday.
Andy Sonestein was Talmadge.
Talmadge, okay, went to
He was up by me.
I told you the only thing I remembered about Andy Sonestein was that Ben Francisco had 5 career home runs off him. It was the guy he owned the most. And then the only other connection I have is Cade McClure, who went to mentor.
Someone mentioned him in our comments, and it's he just
he's with he's with the Giants now. The White Sox traded him to the Giants. So I'm reading from Cade McClure was the first guy I ever interviewed when I got to the News Herald out of college, my first writing job. I talked to him before the Major League draft that year, and he didn't get drafted, but his dad was a quarterback at Bowling Green, and I think he was a backup maybe in the NFL. Brayan McClure, I think he was a backup in the NFL or something, but hasn't made it yet. But I'm rooting for him.
So Defiance has, in terms of listed players drafted, it's actually not that big. Dice Kime, John Neese, and Chad Billingsley.
John Neese, that's right.
But that's
not that big. But those guys all made it.
Well, I mean, those are the guys drafted. Dice Kime was actually drafted out of high school. I didn't realize that. Didn't sign.
That's right. He didn't make it to the majors yet, did he? Or he never did, right?
No, got the yips.
That's right.
Kent State definitely has the biggest list in here, but it's interesting. Marietta College has some names in there, most notably Terry Mulholland, who got there. I mean, heck, Marietta High School. I spent a summer in Marietta. It's kind of interesting to see some of the places you don't even think about in Ohio. And we all know, Akron's most successful player,
Chris Bassett.
So Chris Bassett.
Not from Northeast Ohio.
That's Toledo area, I want to say. And a lot of people, I had someone bring up Feltner, who's with Colorado, who's actually born in Orlando. So it doesn't get you across with him. Most people mention someone from the Dayton area. That's actually, that's where a lot of them are. Outside of though the most successful in terms of names might be Archbishop Moeller, which had Buddy Bell, David Bell, Ken Griffey Jr., and Barry Larkin.
That's Cincinnati, right?
Yeah, that's the.
Wow, and they all played for the Reds. How weird is that?
Yeah. Well, I mean, hey, they actually drafted in their backyard successfully.
Right, they didn't get beat in their own backyard. Something Ryan Day should remember for the Ohio State podcast. I'm just going to throw that out there.
Yeah, it's but no, it's I don't know. I always think it's kind of interesting to look at Ohio. What I'll say at the same time, so my high school, I've mentioned it before, is Copley, and whenever I look anything up about Jeff Tabaka, oh no, hey, Baseball Reference actually says Copley High School. So thank you, Baseball Reference. Most places list him as Barberton. I'm like, because he was born in Barberton, Ohio. But listen, at Copley, we produced one football player, I believe, one baseball player, and one actress. So we don't have a lot of big names. So I'm always like, no, we got to get credit for our the guy who threw 139 games in the big leagues.
My high school, I went to Wycliffe High School, if anybody really cares about that at this point, but my high school had a soccer player who was drafted by the LA Galaxy out of college and didn't play for very long. He was in my graduating class. And as far as I know, that is just about it for my high school. Nobody else that I can really think of, unfortunately.
Let's see. I was kind of curious. I know he just retired. So Travis Shaw was from Washington Courthouse, which I believe is between Dayton
we didn't talk
and
about
Columbus. That. Since we didn't talk about, I loved his nickname, and I forgot the mayor of Ding Dong Land.
Ding Dong City, yeah.
Ding Dong City. Happy trails to him. He burned bright and then not.
Yeah.
3 of those first 4 years, amazing. And then, I mean, he debuted kind of later, and then, he hit his 30s and he didn't hit anymore.
Like I said, my only memory of him is he made the last out of the 2016 ALDS. That was I know he had like a 30 home run season. He was good for the Brewers for a minute too, but my prevailing memory of Travis Shaw is being the last out of the 2016 ALDS. And I know Tom Hamilton was a big fan because he went to Kent State. Tom Hamilton loves him some Kent State and college baseball, obviously, because of his kids playing there. I want to say Travis Shaw probably went to college with one of his kids that played there. He had, 2-3 sons that played there? 2 sons?
I knew Nick and Brad. I was always surprised the Guardians didn't draft Brad Hamilton. They drafted Nick. Let's see. Travis Shaw I was doing a blast from the past for a second and looking through some old names of players. Like, how did they end up doing? Now I'm trying to go back to where I had Shaw. Shaw was drafted in 2011. So, yeah, he might have overlapped with Nick Hamilton, who the Guardians didn't draft. When did they draft?
And that was Jeff Shaw's kid, the reliever, right?
Oh, is he?
I think he was Jeff Shaw, the reliever's kid. Is that right?
I thought it was no, yeah. I mean, it says when I
Jeff Shaw was
Travis Shaw father, it says Jeff. Yeah.
And Jeff was a reliever for the Reds, right? That's what I remember him as.
And Cleveland. He was
okay. Well, there you go. Look at that.
I believe he was drafted by the Guardians.
Oh,
I think wasn't he? No, maybe not. When did he end up in Cleveland? I know he did play for Cleveland. I was trying to remember. I thought he was drafted by. Yeah, no, he was a first-round draft pick by the Cleveland Guardians in 1986 out of Cuyahoga Community College.
Whoa! Look at that.
Yeah. Also from Washington Courthouse. So he went back home when it was all said and done. That was back when Cuyahoga Community College, by the way, has only 2 players who got to the big leagues. Him and Darren Chapin, who I don't know, who was drafted in 86.
Wow. I would never have guessed where he went to college. Holy crap.
Do they even have a baseball team anymore?
I think so. Maybe I'll have to ask. We have a friend who works there, so I'll have to
Okay.
dial her up and see if they still have a baseball team.
I'll throw this out there though. Bad pick by the Cleveland Indians. This was the January draft regular phase. They had the first overall pick because they were terrible, and they took Jeff Shaw. Second pick, Moises Alou.
Oh, ouch! What could have been?
The Doug Brocal also in the first round, as well as Alan Mills. So
he made the major leagues the next year. He got drafted in 1986. He debuted in 1990. Wow, that's pretty quick.
And the second round, Kurt Schilling out of Yavapai that year. Let's see, Jamie Navarro didn't sign. Brett Barbie didn't sign. Jerome Walton, who was almost a rookie of the year with the Cubs, was also in the second round. So that's the Kurt Schilling draft. Ray Langford didn't sign, but was drafted. I mean, it's kind of, I always like to go through and look at these because the January draft was weird. Like this is back when you had like 3 drafts in a year. So it was a different time where you could like, hey, do you not want to go? Because I think it was only like JUCO players. It was essentially a JUCO draft.
Jamie Navarro would eventually play for the Indians, by the way, though. He didn't. Yeah. He might not have signed with them, but he would eventually. Did he get drafted by them? I don't see him.
No, he didn't. He got drafted by the Orioles, and Cleveland took Mike Walker that round, who they did sign.
Oh, he would have. Jamie Navarro would eventually play for the Indians. He pitched a whole 7 games for them in 2000. I think he was part of the Bob Wickman and Richie Sexton deal.
No, Mike Walker is who they would take in that round, who would pitch in 88, 90, and 91 in their bullpen and start some games. So that was, it's weird. Like I said, it's a weird draft. Kurt Schilling and Moises Alou. And again, like when you look at the grand scheme of it, Jeff Shaw is a fantastic January phase pick. Unfortunately, Cleveland just didn't really give him much of an opportunity. I mean, he got an opportunity. Let me change that. His first year at 23, not great. Really good at 24. His age 25, he only got 7 innings before he got shipped out. So it was not necessarily, or was he? I'm sorry, they cut him in 1992.
Wow.
So
he wasn't good.
No, he drafted him
to be a good reliever, though.
Yeah, but I mean, think how nice he would have been on those 90s teams if they had held on to him just a little bit longer before he like locked in.
Mm-hmm. He didn't really break out until, I guess he had a decent year in Montreal before the strike, and then
but he
went on to Chicago. He wasn't good until he got Cincinnati.
Yeah. He actually went to Kansas City before he went to Montreal. I mean, he was the journeyman type of guy, but yeah, Cleveland it took him a bit, but yeah, it's essentially like age 29 where he finally and then he was really good from 29 to 32, and then he still had some useful years at 33 and 34, but it's an odd career for who knew we'd get into the Jeff Shaw of it today on
we should probably leave it off there because it's not going to get any better.
No, Nick Hamilton was 2012, so they did overlap. So Travis Shaw was drafted the year before Hamilton got drafted, and Hamilton, I believe, was a senior. That he stuck around all 4 years before Cleveland went and got him. So he isn't he in the organization? Doesn't he have like a scouting job, Nick Hamilton, or is he in another organization?
I think he works for the Royals.
Is that what it is? Yeah.
I think I saw him once in Lake County. He was doing something for the Royals. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he got 54 games in the minors. They knew what they were getting. I mean, he played for a good program, but yeah, it's always kind of fun to go through and look at the names. And like I said, especially because I spent so much time down there, I'm like, man, the Blue Jays really mined that system for a while there. The Blue Jays were taking every pitcher from Kent. I don't know. I guess that's one of those things. Comment below if you ever want us to do a deep dive on like a college draft, a college team and how it's happened. If you want us to do a high school team and break it down like this, is this fun? Is it, do we need to talk about Mick Nichols, the home of Pat Tabler? That's for my buddy Tom, who I know watches these shows, who I believe has a few Pat Tabler cards to this day. But, it's just about every college has had a pick here or there, so you can definitely find them overall. But here we go. Who has the highest WAR of any player drafted out of Ohio?
Are you asking me? Oh, boy.
Yes.
Kyle Schwarber. That's the wrong answer.
Ohio University.
Oh gosh, he's a Hall of Famer. Yes.
Yep.
Don't
Third
tell
baseman.
me. Jeez. Yeah. Phillies. Third.
Yeah.
Mike Schmidt.
Okay.
Wow. That was almost really embarrassing.
Yeah. So he got 106.8 career WAR, which I mean, the guy hit a ton of home runs, and he was also like an elite defender. But Mike Schmidt probably deserves more credit than he gets. But just for those who are kind of curious, like me, top 10 draft picks in terms of WAR: Schmidt, Ken Griffey, Larkin, Buddy Bell, Oral Hershiser. I forgot he went to Bowling Green. I don't know Gene Tennants, so comment below if you're familiar. He's not someone I knew as well, but he is what? 6, 7 Thurman Munson, 8 Dave Parker, 9 Paul O'Neill, who's from the Columbus area, 10 Charlie Liebrandt, who last it was Miami University of Ohio, which is funny because 11 Bill Duran, also Miami University of Ohio, and one was drafted in 78 and the other in 79, so they overlapped. After them, Kevin Euclid, Scott Fletcher, Tim Belcher twice, Larry Hissel, Nick Swisher, Adam Eaton, we talked about yesterday. If we kept going, Steve Yeager, Bill Wegman, then Josh Harrison, and Chad Billingsley to also kind of bring up some recent podcast names. But yeah, it's Chris Bassett needs 2/10 career WAR to pass Jeff Shaw this year and move up. It's an interesting list. I often forget that Oral Hershiser went to school here. So, and Gene Tennant, we need to spend some time on because I have no idea.
I think that's enough.
That is enough. Well, we're at over an hour. See, this is what happens. I get into the draft and I'm like, let's start You're seeing my mind wormhole. No, not wormhole. Dig deep. It's late.
If you stuck with us this long, thank you.
Yeah. Comment below on what
God have mercy on your
random
soul.
flight of fancy you appreciated in this one. Yeah. Comment below. Let us know. Thank you for watching, rating and reviewing, downloading daily. It helps. Remember to like and subscribe on YouTube. And as we end every show, even these super long ones, go Guardians, go.